mama bar, I'm on the road to stardom. Turn back on the conscious road, no stardom. Just cause I'm an MC, I must be a fan. My faves growing up, S Blank, Cam and Sham. Intrepid styles, brass tacks. The whole Flemo Park, can't forget our tracks. Big Daddy KNC, Scoob and Scrap. Express myself like Ice Cube, no Raiders cap. 2CMP got me subliminally glancing through Dr. Ben books since 93. Paid no mind to that, into money and power. Shab and BB were giants, they top of the tower. Now I'm into cracking gats, hats to the back in polo. Thanks G-Rap, Lord Finesse and Daddy IU fresh. Wanted Hirachis and Jordans with the mesh. Didn't self-destruct to get them, I just waited. Hearing Jeff transform as he cross-faded. Travel Fox and Buffalinos, suits of silk. Bumped into Bay Sport when I went to buy milk. He said no deal, I don't care like D. Leave that to me, she mom is my priority first. Heard Stop, Look and Listen, Love Light. Saw the Power album, loved Ice-T's wife. Digging through the crates, diving D Master Ace when 88.1 played Apocalypse and Ace. Deal with your case, LL kinda bad. Nowadays rappers show their chest cause they fag. Walls of posters, MCs and boasters. What's the boot camp crew chant before Estroshka? EFPMD brought Redman to me, Big L and Special Ed Tony Touch instead. Cause he dropped the 50 MCs, all my faves. I livicate this to MCs that's now in the grave. I like to livicate this to hip hop. The 5 elements, Bunda-ish hop. Giving respect, cause of you I made it. Big up the Black Dot, cause he helped us save it. I like to livicate this to the DJs. I like to livicate this to the dancers. I like to livicate this to the MCs. I like to livicate this to the graphers. With no positive influence, I love the like Carmen. All they do today is dances and collar popping. Won't guard and knuckle up but quick to ice and grills. Today nursery rhymers by rapping Jack and Jills. Climbing up Stevens Hill to fetch a pail of water. Seeing girls dressed to it, I couldn't be my daughter. Ladies first is what Latifah used to say. Play the dyke and set it off cause the queen is gay. Nasty Nas was a rebel to America. Coming through the main source causing hysteria. In this track I'm not gonna name them all cause they know who they are and I'm not trying to ball. Even if Jerry was bald, he's still God. You can't stop the prophet, Lord. Only Wu I bought was liquid sword. Onyx in the headphone when I stepped on the ball court. Used to shoot lots so they called me Trigger. Dunking on Euros when they called me nigga and thought. Even had a stint with Too Short and Tim Dog when head was called Rim Job. Monolith and us battled at Notre Dame. We still fam today and we don't owe the game. Not a dime or a penny, no Henny for me. Rap is a butter knife, I'm a cutlass machete. No self-destruction, I'll leave you alone. Extra terror, I should make you phone home. Rappers getting pissed off and grabbing the chrome. We all in the same gang, this ain't a game, man. Business as usual, still unfinished. The lights of hip-hop will never see limits. To the old school, that turned new school mule. Sold out the vets to be a new fool. I like to livicate this to hip-hop. The 5 elements, Bunda-ish hop. Giving respect, cause of you I made it. Big up the Black Dot, cause he helped us save it. I like to livicate this to the DJs. I like to livicate this to the dancers. I like to livicate this to the MCs. I like to livicate this to the graphers. Let's rise and give our honors. Where's my book at? Let's see my Five on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe. Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation. By night and by day, through His holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Ashe. Islam. Readings to be read every meeting. I hereby, please, Moors, Islam. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans, it causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive the reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet Noble Juali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet therefore is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Juali. Islam. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now, by the same people on our side of the nation that claim that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Juali. Islam. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam. This is the instruction from your Prophet Noble Juali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Juali, and that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see, but cannot see, ears to hear, but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest. The ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah would bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Juali. Peace. Islam, Moors. So today we got a special installment today. Before we start, just a quick background. Maybe 2004, while we were in our transition from the black into the metaphysical, into more science and all that, Alim El Bey and Kadir Bey were two of the Moors, like we were talking about in the class the other day, who they accommodated us getting into the information, right? So every chance that we had back then, we would try to do lectures monthly. So we did a few lectures with different people, and when it came to the Moorish paradigm, we started making calls with people, and people were talking crazy as far as, you know, prices and all that stuff to bring them here to do lectures. I think it was Black Dot who gave us the link initially to Brother Alim, and his rate was better than anybody else's rate. So we brought him here a few times. This was back then. In the process of bringing him here and him explaining, you know, the metaphysical side, the historical side, the law side, it became evident that this is where we're supposed to be. So every opportunity that we got after we brought him here, we would try to, you know, do Skype lectures, bring him here some more to do lectures and stuff like that. So at this juncture, Brother Tesba had an initiative that he wanted to work on. And one of the people that he saw fit to present the intro to his initiative is Brother Ali, right? So I'm going to yield, and Brother Tez could get his little intro on, and we can get this started up. Islam.
Islam. So most of you have seen some of these photos that I'm passing out. I'll send some this way and send some that way. And so scale up, Brother Alim. Peace, brother.
Peace. Peace.
Well?
How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
All right, doing well.
Good, good. Yeah, I just want to send some positive energy out to you and the family.
Yeah, thank you.
In
Thank
regards
you.
to the Empress transitioning.
Yes, my mom. We buried her last Monday.
Islam. Condolences, Mark.
Yeah.
So,
Give thanks for being here with us.
no problem. Appreciate you.
Yeah, so like I said, we're gonna, we're gonna go into the topics in relation to the connection between East and West AMEXEM. And I just as an intro, I happen to, when I went to school, when I went to university, I went to school with a lot of people from Nigeria and West Africa. And in the younger generations, it's like they're falling into this programmed European mentality where they actually don't realize that they're the connection to the Americas. Like they're the gateway to the Gulf Stream, which is the highway to the Americas.
Right.
It's the fastest way to get to the Americas from anywhere else in the world, by far, head and shoulders above any other route, other than the Bering Strait, which is, they say, a temporary thing, an ice bridge. So I know Brother Alim has a vast knowledge of these things, and things are coming up in the media and in the news cycle these days that will leave people confused about these things. And so when we present them and when we have our art showcase, I want us to have as many details as we can and as wide and broad a perspective as we can on these things, so that we can share or be there to kind of support and just know what the vibe is, So without further ado, honors to the Prophet, honors to the forerunner, Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, honors to you, Moors, for being here, and honors to you, Brother Ali. I'll let you take it from there.
Honors to you. All right, I'm going to share my screen.
Oh, quick interjection, Mark. If anybody has any questions throughout, this is the hot seat right here. Just talk here, talk in there, and you can ask your question. Islam, Mark, carry on.
All right. If y'all can verify that y'all can see the screen, my screen.
Yeah, we see it.
All right. I do want to talk about this right quick. We have a trip coming up next month, the end of next month, in which we will be going to the Pyramid Cruise. This Pyramid Cruise will be going to Cozumel, to Chichen Itza, as well as also to the Mayan Costa ruins, which has over 200 miles of pyramids there. This is in Mexico. We'll be going to also Roatan, the Bahamas, Honduras on this cruise. So definitely want to get that out. And if y'all do not have my book yet, The First World Order, a lot of the information I'm going to be going over today is inside of that book. All right, so with that said, let me begin. All right, let's look at this connection. Well, we get the book Forbidden Archaeology by Michael Cremo and Richard L. Thompson, and also the other book called The Hidden History of the Human Race. In both of these books, they speak about the fact that there are some very unusual archaeological finds, and I'll get to those finds in a minute, but they harp on the fact that at one time all of the continents were together, one landmass, similar to the landmass that you see right here. All right? As you see, the United States bridges or connects right on top of northwestern Africa. All right? And as you see there, that area that they refer to as Morocco and Mauritania runs along the coast from Florida all the way up into Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont area. So the whole eastern seaboard basically runs along Mauritania and Morocco. Now, this is very important because Prophet Noble Ali in chapter 47 speaks of the fact that there was one landmass, we refer to it as Pangea or Asia, which means body, hence the term Asiatic, Asian, Caucasian. We are all Asians. Within Hebrew, the word Asia is known as the lowest plane or realm, and it's called the world of the making, or the realm of the making. All right? So we're in the realm of the making. When we look at what's called the Mercator map, this is the trick in which that was done, is that they made Greenland larger than Africa, or just as large as Africa. But the Peter map shows actually how it looks. And Greenland is probably about maybe 2/3 of the United States across as far as in length, but is nowhere compared to the size of Africa, which we know we can take so-called 5 United States and put inside of Africa. All right? And another trick that they have done is that really this is the way in which that we should be looking at the world. And what they refer to as east and west will actually be reversed. North and south will actually be reversed in that sense. And I'm just saying this because we're going to get to some other things in which that becomes very disturbing. But the various articles and books mentioned also testifies to the fact and proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are the oldest indigenous and the most indigenous people on planet Earth. The following information, all right, basically has been hidden from us as a whole. So this following information is basically for the said white supremacist racists that will say, unquote, the revised history that 99.9% of the said black Americans descended from Central West Africa, which we did, but not the majority of us 400 years ago, right? Which I'll document to a much deeper level. But this occurred in several impacts over a course of 600 million years, and this is what the book speaks of, Forbidden Archaeology, the Hidden History of the Human Race, is that we were in said Africa. Now, we did not come from Africa in that sense. We're talking about off-world, all right? And I won't get into that, but Cremotois did make this statement. If you read the Zulu Bone Oracle, he stated that the said Moors, originally, before we came to Earth, existed on the red planet, which would be called Mars. All right? This is where Richard Smith gets into his information about the word Moor in Mars, you know, that type of thing. But I won't get into that. You go and do your research. I believe that you can find Richard Smith's information, Rick Smith information on YouTube. When he speaks about that, he has a book where he goes into that information. But that is verified by Cremotois. All right? Now, the same white supremacist races cannot dismiss the scholarly information that we're going to present here, nor can they explain the following data. Allegedly, 5 million to 20 million slaves arrived in America between 1540 and 1850 over a 310-year period, according to United States history books and Emory University. However, if you look at the following facts of published material, we are living under another ideological part of American revisionist history. Also, the following undermines the whole breadth and depth of what is written in American history books. By using simple calculations, mathematics, the following information can be asserted. Over a period of 300 years, it is fair to say about 60,000 slaves were transported annually to the Americas, or has the transportation of slaves to the Americas been one big myth. The largest seagoing vessel carried about 400 slaves, but not all of the ships were that large. Time of passage was 3 to 4 months. This means 20 vessels, ships per year would have traveled carrying 300 people. One ship could make 3 voyages or 3 passages per year. The transatlantic slave trade database say that there was 1,100 to 1,400 voyages made over a 300-year period. If this is the case, and each ship carried 400 people total, the number would be around 560,000 Africans were transported. It still do not add up. According to figures above, many more slaving companies would have been in business of human trafficking annually to come up with the number of slaves actually transported. But the published material listed only 3 major companies that dealt in the slave trade and were given a 31-year monopoly by the British government via the Vatican. All right? The Royal Avenger, later named the Royal African Company Excursion, which we get the word race from, which is not spoken of. Race is an acronym for Royal of African Company, all right, established, or excursion, all right, R-A-C-E, race. So it was one in the same company. Independent companies engaged in slave trades, but there were only 3 main companies engaged in human trafficking. The Guinea Company, at its height, had 15 ships between 1618 and 1650. The Guinea Company also dealt with gold, dyes, and other things other than just human trafficking of slaves. British, French, Dutch, Danish participated in human trafficking. Statistics did not have not taken into consideration the Portuguese ships that sailed at the same time. But from what is out there, the Portuguese and Spanish transported around 81,000 slaves to the Americas. You can get this from Slave Statistics by Hugh Thomas, published in 1997 by Simmons and Sussman. All right? The statistic states only 0.05% or 1.5% of all indigenous people of North and South America are in existence as a result of Christopher Columbus and his European travelers' conquest. 95% was massacred by Columbus and his European crew shortly after 1992. Around 1900, it was thought that Native Americans were on the brink of extinction, with only 250,000 left. Here in the most common sentence question asked by Moors: what water distillation process did the Europeans possess? Because the cargo was precious and the need of survival extremely high. It was a 3 or 4 month voyage with approximately 200 aboard. You would have to give fresh water weekly, because the average person can only go without water for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. How did they survive? How much fresh water was taken? Not knowing how many said Africans were going to be catch. It is nothing more than revisionist history. If this is not true, then explain why said blacks were not allowed to read and write for over 100 years, from 1740 to 1863. In the so-called southern states, of course, there are, exceptions. I suspect to rewrite our heritage into history, its story. In the 1800s, there was no schools in the southern states of America. All right? 100 pounds, current money. If you read Black, Washington, Nation of America, blacks also own miles of U.S. pre-Columbian land by Paul Barton. He states this: one of the saddest aspects of the enslavement in the Americas, particularly in North America, is the fact that all forms of education was denied us and still is today. Blacks were forced to remain ignorant and told that they had no history or culture. Well, here's the problem. Most African Americans are still void of historical knowledge, particularly of their ownership of land right here in the United States. Blacks own actually more of 1 million square miles of land in the Louisiana Territory and the southeastern Florida region, as well as California. In all these areas of land of the United States, there were said black African American nations before Columbus, who would be targeted for enslavement due to the papal edicts that gave the Christian nations of Europe the go-ahead to make slaves of all descendants of Ham found in the newly discovered land. This fact cannot be denied. The essence on said black civilizations of ancient America, published as a great book, is called Susu Economics, The History of Pan-African Trade, Commerce, Money, and Wealth, tells a reality of this. While many of the African ancestors were kidnapped in Africa, many were Africans who came from West Africa, had a number of kingdoms and empires in the southern part of the United States, and who was captured and had their land taken and their people stolen, sold into slavery. These Africans were direct so-called black ancestors, and there had a continuing connection with West Africa, which included trade and commerce on the very eve of the invasion of the Europeans to the Americans. Right? This is Sex and Race by J. Rogers, Volume 1. You can also get They Came Before Columbus by Ivan von Sertima. Now, I'm using the terminology that they have written in their book, so you don't have to go into the term black. We understand what that means. It means civilis mortuus, dead in the eyes of the Lord. But this is the terminology that they're using from the books. So here, Empress Vadiasi Gaston Turner El Bey, she speaks of the return of the Ancient One, that 85% of the so-called blacks here in the Americas were already here before the slave trade. Only 15% of blacks arrived 400 years ago from Africa. We all come from Africa, all right? But once again, as forbidden archaeology states, we turned out over 600 million years ago. The European, or Albion, just got on the planet 6,000 years ago. So we've been on this planet nearly as long as the planet been here, because 2.8, almost 3 billion years ago, there was people, humanoids, in Africa, or what is now called Africa. And at that time, we're talking about when all the land masses were together. So we're talking about Pangea, if you want to know the truth of it. But there is a suppressed history of blacks being a global people. Pangea proves that all the continents were connected. So migration to and from Africa and to other places was simple and easy. All right, get also Ra expeditions. Ra expedition proved that the ancient Egyptian sunboat was capable of global travel. Additionally, temples have been built and named after Egyptian gods, and hieroglyphics or metronetrics have been found in the Grand Canyon. In Oklahoma in the 1800s, the seal of the pharaoh Akhenaten, who was known as Amenhotep IV, aka Moses of the Bible, was found. Get the book, The Ice, The Ultimate Disaster by Richard Noon. Also in the book, America BC, right, by Barry Fell. There is a alabaster egg of a cartouche of King Tut found in Ohio. Therefore, you may ask what other impacts have occurred throughout the millennium. So, we're talking about from 2.8 billion years ago to 600 million years ago, over 600 million years ago, here in what we call now North America, to up to what Barry Fell have stated, that there has been King Tut cartouches found in Ohio, Iowa, excuse me, Idaho. All right, and then also the Egyptians, gods, and hieroglyphics was found in the Grand Canyon. In Oklahoma, in the 1800s, the seal of the pharaoh Akhenaten was found. So when we went to, my wife and I went to Mexico in 2013, March 2013. The curator and our tour guide told us specifically that the people who built the pyramids were not the Mayans. They were the Nubian Egyptians. And he looked at us and he pointed to us. He said, I don't want to talk to you Europeans. We already know the history that you told us. I'm talking to them. And he pointed to us. And he said, the ones who built these pyramids, and he said, I must have to tell the truth because something happened 4 years ago in which that caused me to have to tell the truth. And what that was is that he's talking about Obama became president. And I shouted that out. And so he said that the people who built these pyramids were the Nubian Egyptians. They were not the Mayans. And he said, I can say this because I'm Mayan. So, this goes to prove that Mexico and the pyramid guides there, tour guides there, know this information, that it's the Nubian Egyptians who not just built the pyramids here in the Americas, but all around the world. Okay? So, because they're from Africa, as they say, no, what we found out is that the Egyptians originally was here in the Americas 39,000 years ago. And they left from here, from the interior of here, all right? Because remember, we said they had ships. So if you get Ra expedition, they had the ancient Egyptian sunboats that was capable of global travel. All right, so they would travel back and forth to be with their families that was here in the Americas, as well as where they set up camp at later on in Africa. All right. Now, according to the United Nations definition of indigenous, those people having a historical continuity with the pre-invasion and pre-colonial societies consider themselves distinct from the other sectors of societies now prevalent in those territories or parts of them. They form at present non-dominant sectors of society and are determined to preserve, develop, and transmit to future generations their ancestral territories and their ethnic identity as the basis of their continuing existence as people in accordance with their own cultural patterns, social institutions, and legal systems. Now you get the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, September 18, 1995, it says this: in this declaration, indigenous people are those who embody historical continuity with society which existed prior to the conquest and settlement of their territories by Europeans, as well as peoples brought involuntarily to the New World who freed themselves. So that 15% of the African blood that was brought here over the last 400 years ago, mixed in with the 85% that was already here, as the Empress said. And that still makes them indigenous, according to the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, or the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, coming from the United Nations. Because it says right here, as well as people brought involuntarily to the New World who freed themselves. So they did bring some of us here. About 15% of our genetic bloodline come from Africa 400 years ago. However, we would not be African Americans, we'd be American Africans then, if that was the case. And then Europeans who state, according to anthropology and archaeology, that we all came from out of Africa. Then they too would be African Europeans then, African Asians. But how come they don't put African in front of their name? Because there's still a way in order to take land from us and to say that they just want all of us here over the last 400 years, or over the time of the transatlantic slave trade. But it says right here, in this declaration, the indigenous people are those who embody historical continuity with societies which existed prior to the conquest and settlement of their territories by Europeans, as well as peoples brought involuntarily to the New World who freed themselves. See, that 15% that mixed them with the 85% still make them indigenous to this land map. Why? Because where is it when you put 15% of cream in coffee that it becomes cream? It's still called coffee. It's called coffee with cream. It's not cream with coffee. Indigenes. It says from French indigene, from Latin indigena, sprung from the land. So when we look at the word land, we know embedded inside the definition of land comes to Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. It states specifically that moors and land are synonymous. As a noun, a native, literally inborn. Ashtanis, native, indigenous, 1845 from Ashtan. Nenes. But it says sprung from the land is indigene. And we're going to show you, as we say, it all correlates. And we know Article 6 of the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People say that each indigenous individual has the right to a nationality. Indigenous people, number 9, indigenous people and individuals have the right to belong to an indigenous community or nation in accordance with the traditions and customs of the community or nations concerned. No discrimination of any kind may arise from the exercise of such right. All right? 13. It says indigenous people have the right to revitalize, use, develop, and transmit to future generations their histories, languages, oral traditions, philosophies, written systems, and literature, and to designate and retain their own names for communities, places, and persons. Right? Indigenous people, Article 33. Indigenous people have the right to determine their own identity or membership in accordance with their customs and traditions. This does not impair the right of indigenous individuals to obtain citizenship of the states in which they live. Indigenous people have the right to determine the structure and to select the membership of their institutions in accordance with their own procedures. All right? So, Universal Declaration on Human Rights, Article 15, everyone has the right to a nationality. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of their nationality, nor denied of the right to change his nationality. So since the United States is a United Nations Council member, then this treaty is law. And it's international. And it correlates to the Article 6 of the Constitution, which it states that the treaties are the supreme law of the land. It also supersedes the Dred Scott case decision. All right? And this correlates also to Canada, or CANAANLAND, where we know that Canada, the corporation, is incorporated in Washington, D.C. You know, Executive Order 11490, October 19, 1969, the King Alfred Plan, later on called the Rex 84 Plan, which was signed into order by Ronald Reagan, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, states specifically that this report is now in preparation. There will be many states or cities, there will be many cities where the minority will be able to put into the streets a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by a heritage. Right? That's the key word right there. And knows that the political asylum would not be available to him in other countries. All right? At least they thought so, because a few years later, with the Black Panthers, they seen later on that that asylum, political asylum, was given to like Afeni Shakur's sister. All right? Everybody should know who that is. All right? So, the greatest concentration of minorities is in the Deep South, the Eastern Seaboard, the Great Lakes region, and the West Coast. All right? So, this all correlates to this information. So, here you have Scientific American Magazine, June 5th, 1852 issue, and it says that the blast was carried out in Meeting Hill Rock in Dorchester, Massachusetts. And it says that the United States Geological Survey stated that it was in Putnam, over 600 million years old, that they found a bell-shaped metallic vessel blown out of the rock, which is about 4 inches high, with exquisite carving, indicating the presence of artistic metal workers over 600 million years ago. So the question is, who in the hell was smelting metal 600 million years ago? Which takes over 1,200 degrees to even do. All right, so here are some examples of this, of us being on planet Earth before the continental drift happened. If you go to Antelope Spring, Utah, prints of a man wearing shoes in which that the left foot has trodden on the troglodyte, a creature of 440 million years ago. All right, St. Louis, Missouri, footprints in Premium Rock over 200 million years ago. Berwick, Kentucky, footprints in Pennsylvania Rock, 200 million years old. All right, Persian County, Nevada, a shoe print showing evidence of a well-cut and double-stitched leather sole in Triassic limestone, 160 to 195 million years old. Right? Now, everything I just said so far is before the continental drift occurred, at least for that last one, which is 160 to 195 million years ago. But from 200 to 440 to that 600 million years ago, all the land masses was together at the time. Glen Rose, Texas, footprints in Cretaceous rock, 70 million years old. Right here we have a 28 million year old human skeleton found in the British Museum, or put in the British Museum in the basement from the Caribbean island of Guadalupe. All right? 28 million years old. Now, this is 10 times older than Dagnash, which, you know, Oshawa Places likes to speak about, that was found in Africa, you know, which is more of an ape-like species, but that goes back to 2.8 to 3.2 million years ago. This is 28 million years old human skeleton, in which they had on display in the British Museum years ago, but they took it down and put it in the basement, all right? When my wife and I went to the British Museum in London, the curator of the museum, he wasn't the head, but he was one of the curators. We asked him, can we go down to the basement? We would like to see what they have. The head curator at the time was not there, and he said what he could tell us is that 80% of what is above, 80% is below in the basement. Only 20% is above that we was able to see. So we was looking, and we was like, damn, is this the 20%? I can imagine what the other 80% is. Wow. Of what they have in the basement of the British Museum. And this is just part of what they have. All right? In 1887, Florentino Amigalo discovered apparently man-made heaps, primitive flint tools, carved bones, and a moderate-looking human spinal bone in the Pliocene stratus, 3.25 million years old at Monte Formosus, Argentina. He also made similar finds in the Miocene stratus in Argentina, 5 to 25 million years old. So here it is. We have 28 million year old skeletons, human skeletons found in Guadalupe, an island, all right, that sits off of Central and South America. And then we have in Argentina, which is South America, 25 million year old flint tools, carved bones, and human spinal bones. This dating back also to 25 million years old. So, nothing in which that has been found in Africa thus far relates back to these times. All right? Not saying that it doesn't. We know that if you go back to Richard L. Thompson and Michael Clemore's book, Forbidden Archaeology, there were metallic spheres in which that was found that dated back to 2.8 billion years ago. All right, so we know that somebody had to smelt metal 2.8 billion years ago in Transvaal, South Africa. All right, but the bones in which that relates back to those time periods has not been found thus far. What has been found has been over 28 million year old, 70 million year old, 25 million year old, 28 million year old, 70 million year old bones of humans, not monkeys. In fact, 25 million, 28 million, and 70 million years of these bones being found was all before the ape species. The ape species did not come into existence as we know it until 20 million years ago. So there's nothing that can be said about us coming from apes. We existed before the goddamn ape species, as I've shown and have proven. Between 1894 and 1921, mineralogist and archaeologist William Nevin discovered ancient cities in Mexico that dated back to the beginning of the Pleistocene era, which was 2.5 million years ago. So they're talking about a monkey coming from out of Africa 2.8 million years ago, as compared, which they call Dagnash or Lucy, all right? Raymond, can't remember his name, Raymond, he found it. But here it is, 2.5 million years ago, They had cities in Mexico. Some cities was built further into the Tertiary era beneath volcanic ashes. Never rediscovered over 2,600 stone tablets, as well as modern human skulls that show negroid genetic markers. Nevin's Guerrero collection is now in the American Museum of American History and the Peabody Museum of Harvard University. But 2.5 billion years ago, cities in Mexico. This is before the Olmecs, who they claim was only in Mexico 5,000 years ago, but they do tell us that all of the Native Americans came from the Olmecs being the oldest Native Americans in modern day time. But here we have cities that was built 2.5 million years ago in Mexico. So we know that Olmecs not the oldest, but obviously they are still genetically connected, because it says that these human skulls shows negroid genetic markers. Okay? Through the United States Geological Survey, we have a team led by Virginia Stein McIntyre in 1989. Human habitation was found existing in Mexico for at least 250,000 to 350,000 years based on human artifacts and stone tubes tested at the Helico site near the city of Pueblo. Shortly after the date of this site was made public, the head of the Mexican Archaeological Department of the Mexican government became very upset at the ancient dates, and ordered the Mexican army to close the site and confiscate all artifacts. Stein McIntyre was told to change the dates and take a zero off. I say zeros. So, but she stood her ground and jeopardized her career. All right. So if you would take a zero off, then it would be 25,000, 35,000. No, it was more 2,500 to 3,500. It would have been 2 zeros in which that they would have asked to take off, because that would have correlated to the time in which that they would say, that's the time of the Mayans. All right? Things your DNA company forgot to tell you. Neves further pointed out that the Aboriginals found in North America resemble what currently can be described as African Americans. All right, so he's telling you right there that the Aboriginals of North America resemble what they now call African Americans. Because why? Because they're one and the same people. Right? And of course, Canada, what they call United States, and Mexico, that's North America. Right? So as unresolved morphological position between moderate South Pacifics and Europeans. Researchers from Spain, Mexico, and Argentina wrote an article which had also acknowledged that the Paleo-Americans did not look like modern American Indians. Now, we just talked about Argentina. All right? We just talked about Argentina. Where was the bones found? In Argentina. They like 25 million years old. And here it is, those in Argentina saying they do not look like the Mongolian looking type of Indians that they now refer to as. Well, who do they look like? Oh, they told you. They said it looked like the Aboriginals found in North America resemble what can be now described as African Americans. So that means that this was your ass back in 25 million years ago here. This was also your ass 28 million years ago here. This was also your ass 70 million years ago here. 160 to 195 million years ago. 200 million years ago to 440 million years ago to 600 million years ago. Right here in the goddamn Western Hemisphere, as they refer to it as. That's what this means. Right? According to Seuss Economic History of the Pan-African Trade, Commerce, Money, and Wealth, these blacks found in the Americas 1 book library states that the mound builders, they were dark-skinned, woolly-haired blacks who were indigenous, native to North America, kin to the Olmecs of South America. The Olmecs and Washington, black Californians, Yamasee, Californiani, and other pre-Columbian blacks of the Americas were part of a prehistoric trade network that began in Africa and spread worldwide over 100,000 years ago, and at various periods afterwards, as we have proven. So you want to know the connection between the Eastern Moors and the Western Moors? This is it. All right? Who lived in the Americas 50,000 years ago? This is Colonel James Churchward, the brother to Albert Churchward. All right? Who lived in the Americas 50,000 years ago? Well, let's find out. According to Dr. Albert Goodyear, all right, Dr. Albert Goodyear, what did he say? Leaving South America, Dr. Albert Goodyear, a South Carolina University professor, say humans lived along the east bank of the Sahara River 50,000 years ago. The 51,700-year-old North American site founded in the Allendale County, South Carolina, by the Savannah River is less than 30 miles from the Atlantic Ocean. All right? It says Goodyear holding the flint work by human hands at the 51,700-year-old level. That's what he's holding in his right hand. Right? In other words, somebody made that 51,700 years ago. But he says the evidence for the ancient African migrations came in multiple forms: skulls and skeletons, footprints in lava, campsites, genetic M174, and the dihaploid groups, linguistics, paintings, carvings, architecture, Egyptian writing. Egyptian writing? What the? Hold up. Egyptian writing? 51,700 years ago in the Americas? What's going on? I thought Egypt only 4,000 years old. The pyramids only 4,000 years old. And that's in Africa. What these knockers doing over here? 51,700 years ago. So Egyptian writings, artifacts, and structures. The data exposed the false premise that the first Americans came from Asia once and for all. So the European Albion, Euro-Albion, white, as they call themselves, archaeologists, Josh Reeves, Ross Hamilton, Jim Barrier, and I showed you right here, Dr. Albert Goodyear, Virginia Stein, William Nevin, Michael Cremore, Richard L. Thompson, the United Nations, all these Europeans say that your asses was here first. Has often feel that the first Americans were native indigenous blacks, aborigines, who built ancient mounds, pyramids, advanced civilizations, stone rock structures, and indulged in the high science of star observation forefather or foreparents were. Here it is. Richard Names, University of Manchester. He says that the face of the first American is a Negroid face. Here goes some more Europeans telling you the same thing. It isn't Mongoloid. She was African and Aboriginal. In other words, Australian from the Pacific Islands. This is where you get the Asian portion, as they say. Hence, Elijah Muhammad spoke about us being Asiatic. Noble Ali spoke about us being Asiatic. The Nation of God and the Earth speaks about us being Asiatic, because the Asiatic portion comes from Australia and from the Pacific Islands. Right here, the first Americans. The Brazilians find shows that this new world was discovered tens of thousands of years earlier than previously believed. How about million, as I've already proven? Certainly well before the time of the American Indians. Prehistoric skulls was found buried in layers of soil in Brazilian caves. They are the oldest skulls of America. Lucia being to the race found historically along the rim of the Indian Ocean, in the islands of the South Asia, see, there's the Asian, in East Africa, and in Australia and Malaysia. This is according to the BBC. So here it is. We simply left out, if we're going to say that we left out the from out of Africa, went into the diaspora, into the many areas of and different land masses and continents and of the world. We came back here in the Americas and mixed back in. So this is the melting pot for South Asia, East Africa, West Africa, Australia, and Malaysia. Right here. Black upon black, as they call it. Moors, Moors, Moors. Over and over again. Right here it says, that to me is a Negroid face. It has all the features that you would associate with a Negroid face. The proportion of the face doesn't say anything about it being a Mongolian. A Mongoloid, excuse me. So this is what Rich said. This is the British forensic scientist. This is him here speaking about this. The first reaction was not to believe it, but as the results repeated so many times, and the results are exactly the same thing, the skulls are very similar to the Australian Aborigines and Africans, and no similarities at all with the Mongoloids in Asia, nor with American Indians. This is what Walter Naves, who is a Brazilian anthropologist, states. Europeans, all of them tell you who was here in the Western Hemisphere first. I just happen to tell you that it goes back to over 600 million years ago, which they won't tell you, because they want to keep you confined to maybe now, as you've seen, at least they went up to over 50,000 years ago. This is at least big. Dr. Albert Goodyear got us to at least 51,000 years ago. But as you see, there's many zeros in which that is taken off of that compared to 600 million years. All right, this is Lucia, as they refer to it. All right, so, all right, in the book Man, God, and Civilization by John G. Jackson, he says, I have seen a statuette of a Negroid in the archaeological collection of Mr. Ernesto Franco in Quito, Ecuador. According to the opinion of local archaeologists, this statuette is at least 20,000 years old. 20,000. Right? So, in the book Man, God, and Civilization, John G. Jackson was able to get us to 20,000 years old. And he says that Archaeological black race in the Americas was either gradually mixed with the Indian ones or became extinct. Wrong. We wasn't gradually mixed because we were the Indians. But the Archaeological black race, as they refer to us, we're still here. We're still in the Caribbean. We're still in the Central and South America. We're still in the North America. We're still here. Negroes and Negroids were numerous in the New World. He says that though. 103 amazing facts about the so-called black Indians of the Western Hemisphere outlined. Right? Right here today, I'm just reading that. It says, until recently, it was believed that the first humans crossed the Bering Strait around 12,000 years ago. Well, we know that we're way above that. To enter the North American continent, this view was never accepted by physical anthropologists who had found skeleton remains far older than 12,000 years old in South America. Today, archaeologists have found sites from Argentina, there we go, Argentina again, to Chile, that ranges in between 20,000, they go 20,000 to 40,000 years old. Additionally, there was numerous sites in South America which are over 35,000 years old. These are sites in Prada, Furada, 45,000 BC, and Sierra de Cabevera, 50,000 years ago. All right, this goes back to the time that we were just talking about with Dr. Albert Goodyear. Given the fact that the earliest data of the habitation of the Americas continent occurred below Canada in South America, suggests that the earliest American settlers came from Africa before the ice melted and the Bering Strait. All right, this is what it says. All right, I just had to blow it up so y'all can see. Hopefully y'all can see a little bit better here. All right, so right here it says, in very ancient times, the American continent was inhabited by Asians and African blacks. The oldest skull remains found in the Americas are of blacks. My queens observed that it is good to report that long ago that youthful America was also a Negro continent. Negro continent. All right, he says it. That's just what it was. It was Negro continent. Right? This is what they've been hiding from us. And Lannon noted that there was a possibility movement of Negritos from Ecuador into the Piura Valley north of Chicama and Vera in early times. In other words, in South America. So not only were we in North America, South America, meaning the adjoining islands, we call the Caribbeans or Caribbeans, or what we call Americana, as well as also Central America, which connects what they call North and South America. Get the book, The First Americans Were Africans. Documented evidence by Dr. Imhotep, PhD. There's some things I disagree with, and you can see why, because I go much further back to the fact that original Americans, might not necessarily have just been from out of Africa. But here we got the Paleo-American, a primer on the ancient American history by Nasir Ali. Right, and here he goes. He goes into what is a Paleo-American. He says it's the first Homo sapien to inhabit America, predated the Corvus culture. The prefix Paleo means ancient in Greek, so another way of saying Paleo-American would be ancient American. All right, Ancient American magazine. If you don't have it, make sure you start getting a subscription to it, because it speaks a lot about us being here. For over 50,000 years, scientists have known that the Paleo-Americans predated the Corvus. One of the oldest Paleo-Americans ancestors dated back approximately 11,500 years before present. And at an archaeological site in the Lega Santa, Brazil, a female Paleo-American remains was uncovered in 1975. So they knew about Lucia since 1975. 1975. Why is it 40 years later, we just finding out about Lucia? 40 years later. All right? In being that he had being that Dr. Imhotep, he had to keep in a line with academia. You know, these professors at these colleges always got to keep in line with academia. They can't go back like I've done, otherwise they'd be seen as a coup. But yet, not one person will deny the information in which that is in Forbidden Archaeology and the Hidden History of the Human Race by Michael Cleveland and Richard L. Thompson, which states these particular facts. But here, Imhotep says this. He says, in the first Americans were Africans, author and academic Dr. David Imhotep, PhD, is bringing forth decades of research and evidence to present readers a comprehensive look into the history and identity of the first Americans, asserting that Africans were the first Americans and that they arrived 51,000 years before the Mongoloid or Mongolians. All right, so here it is with the 51,000 years, 50,000 years again. So see, he's saying in the line with the academia information which that was found by Dr. Albert Goodyear. Okay? This is about as far as it can take you back. Alright? The voyage from Africa on ancient ships was quite a possible undertaking based on the capability of the vessels of the period and historic material stated it took place. This is Dr. Julian Whitewright, maritime archaeologist, University of Southampton. Alright? That would be Virginia. But here, we have that, and they proved that these ships from Africa could do that. Here we have explorations in the Grand Canyon from the Phoenix Gazette and the Arizona Gazette. All right, the Arizona Gazette, March 12, 1909, and the explorations in the Grand Canyon that dates back to April 5th, 1909. So here it is within a month of each other. Basically, it is told, and you get archaeological cover-ups by David Hatcher Childress. He says perhaps the most amazing suppression of all is the excavation of an Egyptian tomb by the Smithsonian itself in Arizona. A lengthy front-page story of the Phoenix Gazette on April 15, 1909 gave a highly detailed report of the discovery and excavation of a rock-cut vault by an expedition led by Professor S.A. Jordan of the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian, however, claimed that they had absolutely no knowledge of the discovery or of the discoverers. They don't know nothing about, they claim that they don't know nothing about Professor S.A. Jordan. Ancient seagoing vessels used by the Egyptians and Nubians in ancient time. All right? In 2009, studies find Nubians the closest people ethnically to the ancient Egyptians. This is why the Mayan told us that the pyramids were built by the Nubian Egyptians, because the Nubians are the closest ethnically to the ancient Egyptians. Now, Dr. York always talked about us being Nubians. All right? Here is another picture of us on ships, boats. So we got paintings, we got carvings, metriculture, we got pictures, we got actual replicas, miniature replicas of the boats, us being on them. All right, storm over Egypt. In this book, it speaks about the fact that Egypt had crossed the Atlantic Sea in ships more than 10,000 years before the time of Christ. All right, that would be now over 12,000 years ago for us. They had built the world's largest cities in South and Central America and in Mexico. So right there, this verifies exactly what the Mayan told us when we went to Mexico in 2013. They had united those city-states into a nation that stretched from Brazil in South America to Mexico and into Africa. So hold up. They stretched it, so it was stretched from Mexico into Africa. Well, that correlates to the same thing that the Marines said. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Tripoli is in Libya, which is right next to Egypt. The halls of Montezuma is in Mexico down into Central South America. Egypt had built its most powerful empire, and it happened in the Americas. I'm going to say that again. Egypt had built its most powerful empire, and it had happened in the Americas. This is why Professor Walter Williams, say that we are the Egyptians. Everybody is right and exact. The history proves it. This is the actual shit. Found dates back to 3,500 years ago in Cairo Museum. But they can't find you a ship 150 damn years ago. But this ship is 3,500 years old. You know the Egyptians traveled the ocean. We have proof. Get the Ancient American magazine, Archaeology of the Americas Before Columbus, and what it says. In the lower right-hand corner, it says an Egyptian presence in BC America. Oh, we go over to the left side. 40,000-year-old footprint in Mexico. Okay. Let's look at this. It's from Ancient Mystic Oriental Masonry by Swinburne Claimer. This is what he says. He says, when following the course of the constellations, those immovably and perpetually fastened upon America are reached, it would appear that while all that is sublime in the historical past centers upon Egypt, all that is sublime in the prehistoric past centers upon America, which is Atlantis. And as this curtains, which have hitherto concealed the prehistoric connection between the people of ancient Egypt and of America, is lifted, it will be seen that the people of the eagle on the now being descended from the original people of the eagle on this continent, the twine of one, and that the prehistoric Americans were the original Egyptians on Eagle Land prior to the mighty disposition. In the days of the this is why Prophet Noble Drawley say he's an ancient Egyptian of death. An Egyptian of death. You see how all this shit ties together? In the days of Peter, when the earth was divided and the great globe itself was nearly rendered asunder. This is what we talk about in chapter 47. This great earthquake caused the Atlantic Ocean. Right here, let's go down. Say, Agassi, firstborn among continents, America has been forcibly denominated the New World. Hers was the first dry land lifted from out of the waters. Hers was the first shore washed by the ocean that enveloped all the earth besides. And while Europe was represented only by islands raising here and there above the sea, America, which is Atlantis, already stretched in an unbroken line from the land from Nova Scotia to the far west. So, we're not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America. It is a fact that at Memphis, Egypt, in the pyramids, under the guidance of the kings and mystic rites of masonry, were worked many thousands of years ago, but at this time, Egypt and the continent of America was one and the same. In America, rediscovered in the 15th century and repopulated in the 17th century was the recovered Egyptian and the Promised Land. Hold up. Chapter 47, Prophet Ali says that we went to the Pharaoh and got permission to dwell in the land that stretched from West Africa, all the way into Mexico. And there was the Promised Land, or the land of the constellation of the eagle. This is why the eagle symbol is used as the American symbol. We know that the eagle is Heru symbol. Kentucky itself, which we think we have found the remains of an Egyptian colony or nation, as in the case of the works and the catacombs of Lexington, is in latitude by 5 degrees north of Egypt, so that whether they may have visited America on a voyage of exploration, or has been driven on the coast against their will, in either case, it would be perfectly natural that they should have established themselves in that region. King Tut, Kentucky. That's where we get the King Tut. We told you earlier that King Tut was here. If you remember, King Tut was here. All right? So an expedition from King Tut arrived here, and hence we get the name Kentucky. All right? Hell, we found the Egyptian cross in Mexico. The ruins of a mysterious Aztec temple bears a strange and striking resemblance to the Egyptian cross. This Aztec temple is perfectly aligned with an Egyptian-like stone pyramid at the same archaeological site. Scholars doubt any Aztec connection to the Egyptians. Of course they do. I don't, because the Aztecs were Egyptians. Egyptian artifacts found across North America, from the Algonquin writings on the East Coast to the artifacts in the Egyptian place named in the Grand Canyon, are all signs for early arrival of the Americans by Africans. This is what David Imhotep speaks on. That means that these indigenous tribes that we now refer to was all part of that. The dark-skinned tribes were the tribes which managed to contain much of the Olmec blood, like the Arapaho, the Arikara, the Blackfoot, the Cheyenne, the Crow, the Apache, the Mandan, the Pawnee, and the Shoshone. Also the 5 so-called civilized tribes. Who else? When the Moors came to the Americas, they mixed in with the Washita Native Americans, who became known as the Washoe. All right, so the Washita Moors are the so-called lost tribes of the Indians that was spoken of in history. Yes, they are the hidden tribes that were the descendants of the Olmecs and the Toltecs of Mexico. The Washita tribes are also the ancestors of the tribes of the Pawnee, the Osage, the Creek, the Seminole, the Cherokee, the Catawba, the Comanche, the Nez the Tuscarora, the Inisquee, the Manapana, the Powhatan, the Micmac, the Lumbee, the Mandan, the Blackfoot, the Nishan, the Chickasaw. That means the Creek, the Muskogee. All right? And many more tribes. The Washita are partly Arawak, Haitian, which was both Olmecian, each people who were Dad Dogon, and they people who originated from Egypt, the Nubian Kushite people, the Ethiopians. One of the same people. The misconception is that the Black Indians was never taken into slavery. This is not the case. Black Indians was also captured and sold into slavery along with their African cousins. The land of the Black Indians was taken: Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Illinois, Florida, Delaware, Tennessee, Tennessee, Kansas, Iowa, Indiana, all belong to the Washington Moors. The land was invaded by the French and the British. Right? Now, Ancient American Magazine. Ancient American Magazine says evidence for black-skinned natives Americans long before the arrival of Columbus is abundant. From the distinctly Negroid features of Colossus Olmec sculptured heads and the pre-Aztec Abyssinian bows. See, this is pre-Aztec. The Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans, Toltecs, all of them was our children. And they began to start mixing it more with the invaders, such as the Spaniards and the Portuguese. The pre-Aztec Abyssinian bones being upheld by a figure with unmistakably black characteristics to the bones of Negroid persons excavated from a 2,000-year-old mound in northern Wisconsin, who is over 7 feet tall. A wealth of material exists to establish the certainty of non-whites and non-Indian population living in pre-Columbian America along with these other groups. Though so many mounds have been deliberately destroyed, over 200,000 ancient pyramids, maroon, and huge mounds, tekenu, of earth are in the shapes of cones, animals, and geometric designs can still be found from the southern coast of America to Canada. These structures were built by so-called obscure people largely known as the mound builders, or the Damanya. So, according to a history of socioeconomics, history of Pan-African trade, commerce, money, and wealth, these blacks from the Americas, the mound builders, they were dark-skinned, we-haired people who were indigenous, as we say, but they was here over 100,000 years ago doing trade. But here we have a history of the African Olmecs, and it says not a single European nation, tribe, or kingdom is responsible for the presence of blacks in Americas. All right? The very first people of Negroid African arrival in the Americas over 38,000 years ago. According to National Geographic, the article of Peoples of the Americas, more than 50 skulls representing African and people of Africoid Aboriginal types, similar to that of the Malaysians and Australians, were found in Brazil. Now, this is National Geographic. Right? Samuel George Morton, MD, and it's called The Inquiry into the Distinctive Characteristics of the Aboriginal Race of America. Boston Society of Natural History, April 27, 1842. What does he say about this here? All right? It is my chiefly intention to produce a few of the most striking characteristics of traits of these people to sustain the position that all American nations, except for the Eskimo, are of one race. So, if you take out the Europeans being here, if you take out the Eskimo race, who is Mongolian, he says they are all of one race, and that this one race is peculiar and distinct from all others. All possess alike the long, lank, black hair, brown, and cinnamon, copper, that's the copper color skin, and the heavy brow and the color sleepy eyes, the full and compressed lips, and the sallow but dilated nose. These traits more for equally common to the savage and the civilized nations, whether they inhabit the margin of rivers and feed on fish or roast the forest and subsist on spoils of chase. It cannot be questioned that physical diversities do occur, equally singular and impeccable, as seen in different shape, color, and variance from a fair tint to the complex, almost black. And so see, this is the only reason why we was called black, because the complexion was almost black for some of us. And this too, under circumstances in which climate can have little or no influence. So also in reference to statute, the differences are remarkable in entire tribes which moreover are geographically approximate to each other. These facts, however, are more exceptions to a general rule and do not alter the particular physiognomy of the Indian, which, hold up now, he says of the Indian, which is as undeviatingly characteristics as that of Negro. Hold up. So Negro, Indian, and the cinnamon colored skin, brown or cinnamon colored skin. He says, for whether we see him in the athletic career or the Shima, in the dark Californians or the fair Boreal, he is an Indian still. In other words, he's still a nigga. You know, that's Jay-Z. You know, rich nigga, poor nigga, still a nigga. He's saying same thing right here. You know what I'm saying? Whether you say he's from East Coast, West Coast, you know, Canada, down to Mexico, still Indian. In other words, still a Moor. And cannot be mistaken for being of any other race. J. Baptiste Leonard Durano, he says, the voyage to Senegal, Atlas of the region, page 25, 1802. I shall add another reflection of public utility. The blacks are a kind of men destined by nature to inhabit Africa and America. America? And we are destined to inhabit Africa and America? She has created for them burning regions. Let us therefore take care not to oppose her view and overthrow the barriers which she has established, but let us preserve their races in their natural purity and not permit the Negro to inhabit Europe. This mixture, now what the hell is he worried about Negroes, as he referred to us as, all the way in Europe, if we was by nature to inhabit Africa and America? And then he's talking about Senegal, which allegedly is in Africa. So how in the hell did he get to the shit here in America? This mixture of black and white is dangerous to our population, and in time it may change, corrupt, and even destroy it. Indeed. Right? The dark races of men. Right? We come down. It says here, they are confined to no particular zone, but spread, as it were, from pole to pole. Who he's talking about? From pole to pole. We're talking about the dark races. Matter of fact, how we know? Because we go up. We find the dark races still on Earth. Of their ancient history, absolutely nothing is known. So they know nothing about ancient history. I just told you some of it. But they know nothing of it. Nor does it matter in what region of the globe we first view them. They are confined to no particular zone, but spread as if it were from pole to pole, from the North Pole to the South Pole, from the Arctic to the Antarctic Circle. We are here. We was all around the world. We're global people. If the blacks be a dark race, then the dark races exist in Europe as a race. Asia abound with them. Africa has always been considered its stronghold, and unquestionably, from the Mediterranean shores to Cape Alucia to thick lips of Cops, which is talking about Ethiopia, or Bosjamin of all shades, but the fair prevalent throughout. But it is in America, the last discovered by the civilized Europeans, where we find the stronghold of the colored race. From the land of the fire to the icebound Polar Sea, nature has darkened every race unmistakably. Damn, he had a rhyme on this. He had a rhyme. That was a rhyme right there. Cujo, you might want to add that into one of your lyrics right there. For real. Alright? He said, where we found the stronghold of the colored race from the land of fire to the icebound polar sea. Nature has darkened every race unmistakably. All right? James Baldwin, he even tried to tell us. Around the age 5, 6, or 7, it came as a great shock to see Gary Cooper killing off the Indians. And although it was rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians are you. In case of the American Negro, from the moment you were born, every stick and stone, every face is white. Since you have not yet seen the mirror, you suppose you are too. It comes as a great shock around 5, 6, 7 to discover that the flag for which they have pledged allegiance, along with everybody else, has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to see Gary Cooper killing off the Indians, and although you are rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians are you. All right? James Baldwin, 1965, The American Dream and the American Negro. Right? Also, the other book, which is called The Dark Race of Men, this is by Robert Knock. Robert Knock. Okay, that's page 148. He reveals that information. Right? So, hey, this is a picture right here. The so-called Black Indians met by the Spaniards in Louisiana in 1543. The English don't like going by the term Indian, so we simply say the Washington Moors. We're Moors. All right, so the Moors, here they are being the Moors, right here. All right, when they came to Louisiana in 1543. The French. All right, how do they describe us? Well, during the 3 days that the Spaniards recruited themselves, they saw on the last day about noon, coming from a place of a foe, reads 7 boats which advanced towards them. They saw in the first was a very large black Indian. The aspect is very different from those who inhabit the interior of the country. Right? So we know that in the South and along the eastern seaboard and across the Great Lake area in California, we was there. We was there heavy. This is who they talking about. We in the same places as we always been. Those that's in the heartland of what they call Kansas, and in those areas, you know, that's when the Mongoloids who came from out of the Bering Strait, who came down from the ancestry of the Eskimos, came down into this area. Right, so in 1539, the first ever land crossing of the United States was completed by Azina Moore. Moore. The Mary is the Moor, Azina Moore. A Muslim Berber, a Moor. In 1654, English explorers reported a colony of bearded people in North Carolina who called themselves Moors, and dropped to their knees to pray while working silver smelting operations. In 1670, Turks and Moors were excluded from slavery by the Virginia National Assembly. On March 3rd, 1753, Adel Hanir and Mahomet petitioned in Arabic for their freedom from slavery in South Carolina. On June 28, 1786, a declaration of naval peace between the Moors and America was signed by Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and who? Tahir bin Abdullah Finish Bey. He was the Bey. In 1787, a treaty of peace and friendship between the Cherokee and the United States was signed by Abdullah and Muhammad ibn Abdullah. But you don't know that these was Cherokee. That's what you didn't know. The Iroquois Confederation, who helped with the designing of the Constitution. for the so-called United States of America. There is Cherokee, but there was Muslims, there was Moors, there was Muslim, and there was Cherokee, just like Ali. He was a Moor, but he was raised on a Cherokee reservation. He was Cherokee, a Cherokee Moor, Egyptian at that. Oh, we can't see the correlation? Well, we continue reading. And on January 20th, 1790, the Free Moor Act allowed Moors to be tried as South Carolina citizens rather than under the Negro Act. Islam was clearly thriving on this continent. You're just coming back into your own Moors of Islam, being a Muslim. We was already doing it. Virginia passed 2 acts in 1682 that combined the Native Americans and the Africans into one category, Negroes and other slaves. Written records of the voyage of 1524 of Giovanni de Verrazano, and recorded in the letter of Francis I, King of France, July 8, 1524. Please note the description of the natives. They are dark in color, not unlike the Ethiopians. See, the Ethiopians, the Cushite, the Nubian Cushite, or the Nubian Egyptians. They say it's like the Ethiopians. They refer to us as the Ethiopians or the Nubians or Egyptians. Not only did we have their heritage, but we also looked just like them. They were dark in color, not unlike the Ethiopians, with thick, dark hair, black hair. Not very long, tied to the behind their head like a little small tail. And the physique of these men, and they was well proportioned and medium height, and a little taller than we are. They have broad chest, small arms, and the legs and other parts of the body are very composed. Charlotte, Missouri. That's right here in North Carolina. Dated Sunday, August 15th, 1993. Said that the North Carolina in 1690 reported the presence of Moors and that they are the ancestors of a people erroneously called Melanesians. Virginia, North Carolina, to Florida, indigenous people. This is how the indigenous people look. These are these dark-skinned people that they keep referring to. These are the Moors. And you see the Liberty cap on their heads, the red Liberty cap. This is where you get the paper genocide of the Native Americans from the 1790s census to the present. That's Walter Plucker. And he plucked your ass out of your damn indigenous heritage and told you that you just came from Africa 400 years ago. According to the United States Department of Interior agent Walter Plucker and government historian Jack Forbes, the Negro today are the descendants of these people called and referred to as Choctaw, Chickasaw, all right, Creek, which is Muskogee, Yamasee, Seminole, Washita, Blackfoot, Shoshone, and many other southern and eastern tribes. Right? The Chickasaw-Choctaw Treaty of 1866 stipulates that all Negroes who were living within the territory of the Chickasaw and Choctaw nations during 1866 were protected by the treaty under the United States, and their descendants are still protected under the same treaties today. When Negroes or the descendants of the Negroes are reclaiming back into the tribal communities, that people's identity and standing in law changes, and she or he gains certain immunities as an Indian or Indigenous, she or he can no longer be treated as property, a citizen, or slave under the state law. This person is now under common international law jurisdiction and has human rights. Of course, we know that that this is all talking about this paper terrorism, as we refer to it as. The paper terrorists were the Europeans. Now they got us reversed, talking about the Moors are doing paper terrorism. No, y'all motherfuckers did paper terrorism on us first. And here it is, all the way back to the damn 1792. All right? So, here it is. According to Richard Thornton, all right, some say that he's not saying that the Mayans were in Georgia. Well, Lizardo Langley, forensic geologist and historian, has found much proof of the Mayan Indians, slaves in South and North Carolina and Virginia by means of beliefs. archives of beliefs counts thousands of them being sold into the Carolinas. My grandma was one. My grandma looked just like Imani. Right? In the area of this so-called police, the Mayans suffered and died under Spanish occupation. They was massacred and fled into the dense forests of central and western Belize for security. The British buccaneers and pirates also attacked the Mayan along the coast of Belize. They raided and destroyed many of the Mayan settlements along the coast. They also stole food, enslaved the Mayans, and kidnapped Mayan women and children. Some Mayans were even sold as slaves to British plantation owners and settlers in Jamaica. Some were also sold to slave masters in southern states of the United States, especially North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. This is verification. So now when we get the commission of to the 5 civilized tribes, the Dawes Commission, the 5 civilized tribes are the Choctaw, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, which is the Washita, the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Creek, which is Muskogee, and the Seminoles, which is the Yamassees, the Yamasee, were so-called the United States government because they were more advanced literate than many others and had adopted systems of government patterns after the United States. No, the United States government adopted the government pattern after the Cherokee, who are the Chickasaw, which is the Iroquois Confederation. This is their trick that they've been doing to us. Here it is, look at Moor. Definition, Webster Third National International Dictionary. And it says, Moor, one of the groups of people of mixed Indian, white, and Negro ancestry in central Delaware. Compare Nanacoats. Who are the Nanacoats? The Lenape. But it says Indian. So Moors and Indians became synonymous because of this scenario. You get the book Nanacoats and the Moor Folk Medicines. Look at that. Nanacoat and Moor Folk Medicine. Get the book. The Delaware, Shawnee, Seneca, Mohican, and Eastern Indians claim that their forefathers originally received their knowledge from the Matapa Sincan from a tribe called the Nanacoat. All right? And so right here in the essay, Nanacoat Moor Folk Medicines by C.A. Westlander, he speaks about the Aboriginals who call themselves Moors and Nanacoats. The Nanacoat means fathers. All right? The fathers, the mystic fathers. That's what Nanacoat means. The mystic fathers. All right? So I'm going to end my discussion, my own presentation right there. Hopefully y'all got something from this.
Islam, thank you.
Islam.
Sure did.
All right, perfect. So when we talk about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of Morocco, we got to remember that it was the Cherokee here, the empire, not the Kingdom of Morocco in Africa, that signed the treaty with the Albions. This is why this treaty goes back to us here, and why we can use that Treaty of Peace and Friendship. And this is why Barack Obama was showing us those flags of the Moroccan government, showing it here, not of Morocco, in the Kingdom of Africa. Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. Right, are there any questions?
Quick question. One of the last things that you were reading there with the names, with those Muslim names.
Right.
What is that from? What document is that from? Or
I go back.
yeah. No, not the tribes. It was right before that, where you mentioned there was a Ibn. One of the.
What part was I talking about? If I can get back to the
It
slide.
was like maybe like 5 minutes ago. So it's way after that stuff you're going to know. It was one of the Moors' name was Ibn.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, you were giving a few dates too. As you were going along,
Right.
you gave a couple different dates.
Right, I got you. Let me find it.
I think it's after that as well. I think it's this right here. This one. You just passed it.
Okay.
Yeah, that one.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, Turks and Moors. What document is that from, if you could be able to tell, please? Or book.
Oh, this is from 103. 103. Yeah, what's the name of? Let me go back.
It's not J.A. Rogers who did that book.
No, this is the 103 amazing facts about the Black Indians on the Western Hemisphere. But J. Rogers, he did do Sex and Race Volume 1, where he speaks about a lot of this information in that book.
Who did that book though? The 103 amazing facts.
Let me get his name. His name is Kanyon, Kanyon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very informal.
But as you see, this connects a lot of the dots. But when Moors be talking about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and how it relates to here. And this destroys the theory that it was talking about Africa, the kingdom of Morocco. They was talking about Al-Marak, as Taj and myself and others have been telling people for the last 20 years and more. So right here, it just breaks down that in 1786, that this declaration of peace between Moors and America. No, it was the Moors of America and the United States. All right, the United States is of America. America is not of the United States. Moors and America are synonymous. They're one and the same. In fact, the word term Moor is the same as the root of as America. Mir and Moor has the same root. So when people talk about American, the word Moor. So whether we say we're Moorish Americans or more Americans or just simply American, they're all the same. And that was signed by Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and who was that? Behr bin Abdelhak Finesh, who was the Bey at that time. And this during the time of what's known as, during this time period, that you had the Marrakesh, right? The Marrakesh Treaties. Right? And then in 1787, a Treaty of Peace and Friendship. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship, that is the one that America still holds up in high esteem to this day. But this was between the Cherokee, who is the Chickasaw, who is also known as the Iroquois Confederation, whom the United States reveals to us that if you go and read the House Joint Resolution, I can't remember what number it is right now, but in the House Joint Resolution it states specifically that they have to acknowledge the Iroquois Confederation for for helping them put together this treaty, not just the treaty, but to put together the Constitution, the United States Constitution. All right, so right here he said this Treaty of Peace and Friendship was between the Cherokee and the United States government. And it was signed by Abdullah Kap and Muhammad ibn Abdullah Bey. So this is why the name Bey is one of the last, along with Il, which was actually a whole Indian tribe. Il, it was a tribe of Il. You can look that up here in North America, in the so-called United States. And so all of this connects back to Cherokee. Hence, reason why it is a clue given to us that Prophet Noble was raised on the Cherokee reservation. These are clues left by this great Masonic man. I know some people don't like Masonry, but we got to follow the breadcrumbs so that we can gain back our knowledge of who the hell we are here in the Western Hemisphere. And this is just some of the breadcrumbs that we've been able to discover over the last 30 years. All right? So we continue on with these breadcrumbs, and you look up these names. You look up Tahir bin Abdullah Haq, finish. You look up Abdullah Kak and Muhammad ibn Abdullah Bey. You look these names up, you'll find that they was connected to not just Muslims or Muslim heritage, but they was Cherokee. Prophet Noble is the only one that I've studied who revealed that we are the indigenous people here by way of Cherokee, and that the treaty was signed and sealed by the Sultan, all right, who is Sultan Abdullah and Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Actually, Muhammad ibn Abdullah was the Sultan. Abdullah Kak was his ambassador for the Cherokee. Which is MOORS, America. So this is American and the United States government treaty, which they call Morocco. This is the trick. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship of America and the United States. Not Morocco, in Africa.
Yeah, Brother Alim, quick question.
Yes.
Well, with regard to the tribes, Cherokee and Iroquois, whatever, is that, being that Drew Ali was Cherokee,
right,
and said that he's Moor, he didn't say that he's Cherokee. Is it colorable?
Well, he left it that he was raised on the Cherokee reservation, right?
Right. So is it colorable for people to claim the tribe but denounce that they're Moors?
No, because El Bey, Day, Al Ali, those are tribal names.
Oh, when I say the tribe, I mean like Cherokee, Chippewa, Lenape.
Well, I mean that's for ethnicity reasons, but nationality we're Moors. So as far as nationality, we deal with that. You know, ethnicity, of course, you can say Washita, Choctaw, Cherokee. You know, to keep, you know, it's still your heritage. But you know, us focusing on being Moors is more important right now, so that we come back into knowledge of self concerning this type of information here.
Right.
Islam.
Islam. Give thanks, man.
Give thanks, man. Any other questions?
Regards to peace out, Mark.
Islam.
Peace and love, bro.
Peace and love.
I heard you mention about the race. Could you expand on the again for me with the acronym of it?
Oh yes.
Yeah, the acronym.
Royal African
The race.
Company.
The race.
It's called the Royal African Company.
Royal.
Excursion or establishment. RACE. So the word race is an acronym for those who trafficked slaves and human trafficking during the times of the 1700s, and it was called Royal African Company Excursions or Establishment.
Islam.
Islam.
Peace, more.
Peace, more.
Yeah. What can you tell us about the French Indian War, or they call it 7 Years War?
Right. The French
How that
Indian War
relates to,
actually was the war between the indigenous people, who was known as the Yamasee or Yamasee, and the French general at the time says this is not a war with so-called Indians. In other words, the Mongolians. This was a war with so-called Negroes. In other words, the Yamasee, who was known to have been a so-called Negro or Moors. They was known as Moors. You know. They know that that French war was really a war. Matter of fact, it was revealed here within the States on PBS, the Public Broadcasting System channel, some years ago, probably about maybe, it was more than 15 years ago now, almost 20 years ago. But they spoke about the general at that time, which I can't remember his name right now, but he was commander of the French war, and he was reporting back to the president at the time, and he revealed that this is not a so-called Indian war, talking about with, the Mongolians or Mongoloids, but this was a war with the so-called Negro, as he referred, the indigenous Aboriginal people.
Oh, okay.
Said blacks. Yeah.
Was he British or French side?
The French. The French.
Okay.
Right. The French general, I can't remember his name right now. But he's the one in which that reported back to his, I guess, I wouldn't say, I don't know, I wouldn't say president, but back to his commander, stated that this is a war between the French and the Negroes. Because it was for the land of what we call the Louisiana Purchase. So-called Louisiana Purchase.
Right.
So, I'm thinking that it had to be one of the kings, King Louis, I can't remember his name right now, but that's what that was about, for getting Louisiana. But we know that the French never won that war. And so it was never bankrolled from the French to the United States to become what is known as the United States. It always been, as the Empress stated, always been Washington land, always been the Moors land. It never was. And actually that land reaches all the way from Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana, all the way across Alabama and Florida, all the way up into almost the whole of Canada. So Canada is actually part of Louisiana so-called purchase, which actually could be what's called Washington proper.
So the French and the U.S. government, they betrayed the trust.
Right, exactly.
So would it be fair to say that because there was Moors on both sides of that conflict, it was like a Moorish civil war?
Basically, yes. Yes.
What time period was this?
1750s, right? 1750s was the French-Indian War, 7 years war.
Right. Right.
On America.
In fact, I think I get
It was in Europe and it was in the Americas.
right.
So when you say Moors on both sides, like the French, there were Moors partitioned on.
Yeah, so there was Moors who were fighting with the French and there was Moors who were fighting with the British.
Right.
Yeah.
Were there Moors on the British or French side?
No. No. So the French. So this war, this 7 years war, was a war in Europe. It was the French fighting against the British. Yeah, they're fighting against each other. So in the Americas, it was some Moors who felt more comfortable with the British, and some Moors who felt more comfortable with the French. And so they fought each other. Right. So then 20 years later, the United States of America, the Europeans have that space, that void to create the United States of America, because we finally ended up fighting against each other in a hot war, right, in the Americas.
Right. And that was talking about specifically the French War with the Yamassees that happened here in the Americas.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yamasee is relative to Malachite, you know?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
As well as to a lot of us here within to say United States and beyond.
So, is it safe to say that when you look at the culture of the brothers and sisters in the South, they recognize a certain trusteeship in the British Empire, in that they have the York Rite and the Scottish Rite, both in that empire, with that long-standing alliance between the two empires.
Say that one more time, Mark.
Yeah, more just in terms of the Anglo-Moroccan alliance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is that something that's seen a certain way to the brothers and sisters in the South?
In the South?
Yeah. Like in those same territories, in the same Louisiana.
Well, I mean, the majority of people don't know this information that I've been going over tonight. So it still is a struggle getting this information out to the people. We have probably, a few thousands, to maybe, I know according to Wikipedia, they said there's about 1 million Moors, in the said United States, so we still not, relevant enough in order to, have any opinion whatsoever as far as that concerned, as far as they're concerned, as far as, from the South, I know a good point that Brother Hakeem Bey made some years ago. It came from a magazine called Nexus. And he found the article, which I had that same article, but in that particular book, magazine, it said that the blacks ran the South. So the blacks in Louisiana at one time ran the South. I think we can say that Louisiana at one time was like the capital for the South, you know, in a sense. Just like in the North, we found that New York was the first capital, and then the second capital was Philadelphia, and then eventually they moved to an area that was between the North and South, in which that, you know, which, as they call it, the Mason-Dixon line.
Right.
You know, and where they put D.C. at. So that was to combine the North and the South. But the South at one time was, the capital was Louisiana. New Orleans was the capital of the South at one time. You know, just like I said, New York was. So the Southern people believe more in the fact that of the Biloxi Moors, the Washita Moors, the Choctaw Moors, that of their heritage in that sense, and they were native, indigenous, aboriginal people in the South, you know, more so than anything else.
Any more questions? Okay. Yeah, just 1 second more.
I want to show it too. Peace, bro.
Peace.
I'm going to show you a picture here too with my grandmother and my grandfather. My grandfather was from Ireland. You should want him to see. Are you sure?
Yeah, you can see it. You can see it now.
You see it?
Yeah, okay.
Raise it up a little bit. Okay, yes, I see it. Yes.
Okay. Now, my grandmother told me some stuff, but I heard you mention earlier on about some of us that came over, a slave or whatever, to Jamaica, where we...
Right.
So, when they came there were other Moors there before, right?
Right.
Okay. Which set of Moors are the one that come there? How would you ever define which set different from the one that was there?
Well, the ones who was already there was called the Arawak Moors. Right, the Arawak Moors.
Okay.
The ones who came from out of Africa, from the west portion, we called the Malian Moors, who was related to the Mandingo people, the Mandinka people, who's also the same as the Dogon people.
Yeah.
So, so the Arawak was part of the other type of people who came from out of Mali, who was also Mandis or Mandinka people known as the Omax. So really, it was nothing more than the Mandinka people mixing back in with the Mandinka people over and over again.
Okay.
Same heritage.
Yeah.
But we had Mandinkas who was in the west, and we had Mandinkas who was in the east.
Correct.
But the same family.
Because I remember my grandmother told me nobody brought her here. She was always here from her.
Exactly.
She told me from maybe 3 grandmothers before.
Right.
And she said she was always there. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Peace and love.
Peace and love.
That's good.
So what about the room?
It's good that you have that.
Maybe the ones there too. Yeah.
Right?
Said, what about what?
The maroons that were in Jamaica or ex-Jamaica or
Oh, the Maroons, yes. The Maroons, known as the Runaways. There was Maroons in Florida who was known as the Seminoles. The word Seminoles also means runaway. And the Seminoles was known as the Maroons. And so when they oftentimes talking about the Maroons, they're talking about the Seminoles, who was also called the Yamasee or Yamasee people, who went into Jamaica, who went up into the hills of Jamaica, became known as the Maroons. All of those are one and the same people. Same family lineage. And the Yamasee were the priests, the high priesthood of the Messiahs. They was the seers of the Cherokee. Islam.
So more, how's the store going?
Oh, it's going well, very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that too. Big up on the juice bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the juice bar, yes, indeed, indeed. Appreciate that, yo.
I'm coming over there. I'm
All
about
right,
to
come on,
visit
come on.
y'all.
All right, come on.
So where is it? Where is it at exactly? Where's it
It's
located?
at 133 South Garnett Street in Henderson, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's Roots talking. Roots is gonna come see you. Hi.
All right, peace.
Tell wifey hi too.
Yes, yes. Kizzy.
Yes. I'm here.
Yeah, more.
Indeed.
Yeah, more.
Yeah, but it's here in North Carolina in Henderson, so we like about maybe 20 minutes outside of Virginia. You know, but we right here in North Carolina and got a nice little spot. You know, it's 5,000 square feet, so we have a basement, upstairs, along with where we have the food at. So we still working on everything, getting everything together.
Okay.
Yeah, but we've been doing the first floor, so we've been doing that ever since February 27th, selling the smoothies, the juices, the herbal tonics, different other herbal blends, as well as also vitamins, minerals, a natural health market, where we have fruit and vegetables that is bought from the organic farmers in the community, as well as what we use at the store, at the restaurant, for the vegan foods. We have a lot of foods on the menu. We have our more lentil steak burger, which is real good, that everybody loves. Mock tuna wrap, which that everybody loves. Also, we have nachos and more, M-O-O-R. We have, we got a more thing up on almost on several of the items. So, we got to get it in that way too, so people can wake up to, to the heritage in that way.
Islam. Yeah, more. We're wishing you all the best with that.
Oh yeah, definitely appreciate that.
Yeah. See the updates on YouTube and Insta.
Yes.
Yeah. So how's the Empress?
Oh, she's doing well. She's doing well. She's downstairs. I'm doing this, and she's doing some cleaning, I guess. Rearranging some furniture and some flowers and things.
Okay. Wow. Keep that energy good.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So any other questions? Comments? Hail ups?
Big up, more, big up.
If we don't come back, if we don't come there, when are you coming back?
Whenever y'all invite me.
All right. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Oh yeah, I always love visiting CANAANLAND, no doubt about that. Y'all some of my favorite people on the planet.
Thank you. We love you.
You're one of ours, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Or should I say you're one of us?
Indeed. Well, I got Jamaican roots.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about it.
As usual, Brother Alim, some closing words for the MOORS. Moving forward. Some words of inspiration.
Well, I do like I always do in my videos, continuing now for days, weeks, months, and years to come. We're moving towards our most cherished goals: health, wealth, knowledge of ourselves, better economic conditions, and full contentment. Every action, enterprise, and endeavor in which that we wish to be involved is bringing increasing rewards. We have so much success, abundance, joy, and happiness in our life that we're able to help and share with those who are sincere along the way. We're moving closer towards the wonders of God and Goddess and the full release of our inner higher selves. Ashe.
Ashe. Islam. You want to close us out with the prayer, Brother Alim?
Say it again.
You want to close us out with the prayer?
Oh, I can't handle someone else, I guess.
All right.
Someone else can't.
All right. Let's do it. Islam, Morris. Give thanks for today. Let's give it up for Brother Alim. And we'll be back again next week, 1 o'clock. Let's close off. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night and by day. Through his holy prophet. Noble Jew Ali. Ashe. Islam.
Islam.
Thank you, Brother Alim. We appreciate
Thanks,
you.
more.
Thanks.
Peace, Moors.
Peace.
Peace.
Give thanks. Peace. Go ahead, give it up for Brother Tesla. Making it happen.